Imagine I told you that calculus is built on two ideas that seem to have absolutely nothing to do with each other. The first is finding the area under a graph. The second is finding the exact opposite of a derivative, something called an antiderivative. At first glance, these ideas couldn't be more different. One is about adding up tiny pieces to find an area. The other is about working backwards from a derivative. So why would mathematicians ever think they were connected? For centuries, no one knew the answer. Then, in one of the greatest discoveries in the history of mathematics, they found something extraordinary. These two completely different ideas are actually the same idea, viewed from two different perspectives. That discovery became known as the Fundamental Theorem of Calculus. It's the beautiful relationship that lies at the very heart of calculus itself. And once you see why it's true, you'll never think about derivatives and integrals the same way again. Imagine the weather network issues a severe rainfall warning, but instead of telling you how much rain will fall today, it tells you the rate at which rain will fall throughout the day. Now here's the problem. Your home sits beside a river. You know that if the river rises by just 30 centimeters, the levees will fail and your neighborhood will flood. So here's the question. Can you predict whether the river will overflow? At first, that sounds impossible. After all, the forecast never tells you how much rain will fall. It only tells you how fast the rain is falling at every moment. So how can you possibly determine the total amount of rain that will end up flowing into the river? For centuries, this seemed like an impossible problem. Then mathematicians discovered one of the most beautiful ideas ever created. Instead of trying to calculate the total rainfall all at once, they broke time into tiny intervals. Let's look at just the first 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, the rainfall rate doesn't change very much, so we can pretend it's almost constant. The amount of rain that falls during those 10 minutes is approximately rainfall rate times time, just one tiny rectangle. Now do the next 10 minutes. Another rectangle, then the next, and the next. Soon, the entire rainfall rate graph is covered with rectangles. Each rectangle represents the amount of rain that fell during one tiny interval. Now add them together. Something remarkable happens. The total rainfall begins to appear. Now suppose the storm becomes much more unpredictable. Now the rainfall isn't changing slowly anymore, it's changing dramatically. One moment, it's barely raining. A few seconds later, it's pouring. Then it almost stops again. Now our 10-minute rectangles have a problem. During those 10 minutes, the rainfall changes far too much. One rectangle is no longer able to represent what's really happening. So what do? Exactly what we've done before. We make the rectangle smaller. Instead of 10 minutes, we use 1 minute. Now each rectangle follows the graph much more closely. But we can do even better. Use 10 seconds, then 1 second, then 1/10 of a second, then 1/100th. Each time we add more rectangles, each rectangle becomes thinner, and together they follow the curve more and more accurately. Eventually, as the rectangles become so thin that they trace the graph almost perfectly, as their width approaches zero, our approximation becomes exact. The sum of all those tiny rectangles gives us the exact total amount of rain that fell during the storm. That's the incredible power of an integral. No matter how wildly the rainfall changes, we can still recover the total amount by adding together infinitely many tiny pieces. The great insight here is that we're no longer limited to rectangles every 10 minutes, or every minute, or every second. We can keep making the rectangles thinner and thinner and thinner. As we add more rectangles, they begin to hug the curve more closely. The empty gaps become smaller. The overlap becomes smaller. Our estimate keeps getting better and better still. Eventually, something remarkable happens. As the rectangles become infinitely thin, they fit the curve perfectly. The approximation becomes exact. No matter how complicated the graph is, no matter how wildly it rises or falls or twists, we can always find the exact area underneath it. All we have to do is use more rectangles, smaller rectangles, infinitely many of them. This idea is so powerful that it works for every continuous graph you can imagine. Simple curves, complicated curves, even curves that change incredibly rapidly. The area under the graph is no longer an approximation. It becomes an exact mathematical quantity. That exact quantity is called the integral. And that's the truly remarkable idea. An integral isn't just adding rectangles. It's taking the limit of infinitely many increasingly accurate approximations until the approximation disappears completely, and only the exact answer remains. Now think about a television screen. Every image you see is made from tiny pixels. Each pixel is just one little square that glows red, green, and blue. Now imagine your television only had 10 pixels. Could you tell what you were looking at? Probably not. There simply isn't enough information. Now increase it to 100 pixels. A rough image begins to appear. Now 1000. It's becoming recognizable. Now 1 million pixels. Suddenly, the picture becomes sharp. Increase it to 2 million, then 4 million, then 8 million. Each time, the pixels become smaller, more numerous, and the picture becomes clearer. Eventually, the pixels become so small that your eyes can no longer distinguish them. You don't see millions of tiny squares anymore. You see one perfectly smooth image. That's exactly what's happening with our rectangles. At first, we only use a few. The approximation is rough. Add more rectangles, and the approximation improves. Add even more, and it improves again. Each rectangle becomes thinner. Each one follows the curve more closely. Eventually, the rectangles become so thin that they perfectly trace the graph, just like the pixels on a television. Individually, they're tiny, but together they reveal the whole picture. In exactly the same way, infinitely many tiny rectangles reveal the exact area under the curve. And that is the idea behind an integral. Now let's look at a completely different problem. So far, we've been finding derivatives. We start with a function and calculate how fast it's changing. But here's an interesting question. If we can take the derivative of a function, surely we should be able to do the exact opposites. Now suppose someone only gives us the derivative. Can we work backwards and recover the original function? At first, that sounds straightforward. After all, if subtraction can be undone by addition and multiplication can be undone by division, shouldn't differentiation also have an opposite? It does. That opposite operation is called the antiderivative. Now let's try a simple example. Suppose I tell you that the derivative of some function is 2x. Can you tell me what the original function was? One answer is x squared, because the derivative of x squared is 2x. But wait, there's another answer, x squared plus 5. Its derivative is also 2x, so it's x squared minus 10. In fact, x squared plus c, where c is any constant, all have exactly the same derivative. Suddenly, we've discovered something surprising. Working backwards isn't quite as simple as we expected. Instead of one answer, there are infinitely many. They're all the same curve, just shifted up or down. That's why every antiderivative ends with plus c. But wait, it gets even stranger. So far, every example we've looked at has had a nice, simple antiderivative. But what if the function becomes more complicated? Consider e to the power of x squared. Now try to work backwards. Try to find a function whose derivative is e to the power of x squared. Surprisingly, you can't. Not because an antiderivative doesn't exist, it does, but because it can't be written using the familiar functions of elementary calculus, polynomials, exponentials, logarithms, or trigonometric functions. In fact, mathematicians have discovered many functions with this remarkable property. They have antiderivatives, but no simple formula for them. So we've run into a serious problem. If we can't always find an antiderivative, how can we possibly solve problems involving accumulation? How can we calculate the total rainfall, the amount of water flowing into a river, or the area under an arbitrary curve. Luckily, mathematicians weren't fooled by this. They quickly realized there had to be a connection between these two seemingly different ideas. On one side, finding the area under a curve, on the other, finding an antiderivative. At first, they seem completely unrelated, but hidden beneath them is one of the most remarkable discoveries in all of mathematics, a deep relationship that unites both ideas into a single theorem. Today we call it the Fundamental Theorem of Calculus. This changes everything. The Fundamental Theorem of Calculus tells us that these two ideas, the area under a curve and the antiderivative, are actually the same calculation. That means if finding the antiderivative is difficult, we can approximate it by finding the area under the graph. And if finding the area is difficult, we can compute the antiderivative instead and get the exact answer. Two problems. One beautiful solution.